You know, with all the Tesla news and Elon news that's dominated this week, dominated all the headlines, you know what we haven't heard yet? We haven't heard Elon talk directly to the vandals who are vandalizing Tesla dealerships. It's more than vandalism now. And in fact, we have a story now coming up about the crackdown and all this stuff happening against Tesla. We'll talk about that as well. But we've heard from Elon now, and he's got some good framing of what he calls them. Just calls them psychos. Big news story yesterday was the closing of the Department of Education, or the beginning of the process of that. How's that going to affect things and teachers and kids? Well, it's going to the states. But if something's not working, would you have to blow it up? We'll talk about that as well. And some entertainment news. Today's the day. Actually, last night, but this is the weekend. Snow White, affectionately now known, even in the Hollywood trade papers, as Snow Woke, finally gets released by Disney. Did they learn this lesson? Did they learn anything? And Hollywood is begging for help now from a very unlikely person about something that's threatening their livelihood. We'll talk about that as well. All kinds of stuff to cover, but more important than anything else you got going on, it's Friday. Thank goodness for that, right? Thanks for finding Wicked Radio as well, the live stream version of Wicked Wisdom. Thanks for being here. And the audio podcast, wherever you like to get those, will be available for you. Usually after 9 a.m. Eastern time, we kind of put that out live on all your favorite platforms, so that will be there. But let's get to some of the news. That was interesting. With all that, now he's done interviews with President Trump. He's kind of addressed the larger issue here. But it's kind of interesting to hear Elon, and I think this was from a Tesla shareholders meeting or something involving Tesla, whatever. It was an industry kind of thing, which is he's all over the place. You hear from Elon these days. He's a newsmaker, right? So you hear from Elon all the time these days. But I think this was directly to the company. But it's the first time, really, as long as this has been going on for the past 2 weeks, really, we've heard Elon speak directly to the vandals, or his special word for them, the psychos attacking Teslas. Pretty interesting and pretty good framing, I think.
So overall, it's good. If you read the news, it feels like, Armageddon. So I was like, I can't walk past the TV without seeing a Tesla on fire. Like, what's going on? Some people, it's like, listen, I understand if you don't want to buy our product, but you don't have to burn it down. That's a bit unreasonable, Like, this is psycho. Stop being psycho.
It's good framing, isn't it? Stop being psycho, you psychos. Now watch how this thing picks up throughout the media, or really social media, not the mainstream media this weekend. Psychos. You'll hear people describe the vandals, domestic terrorists, if you want to call them that. Start calling them psychos, because that's exactly what it is. Now we've got a framing. Now we've got a label for them. The psychos. Stop being psycho. It's really that simple. Now this is why it's a really bad time to be one of those psychos in a couple of different ways. First of all, let's hear from Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. I know she took all kinds of heat. A lot of conservatives, a lot in the MAGA side of the world are very upset at her for not cracking down yet. No arrests. She promised. She made a big deal about the Epstein files coming out. That didn't really happen. So she's under a lot of fire these days. But she made a very strong statement yesterday. Now listen to what she says here at the end of this in this interview about who's behind all of these, what she considers domestic terrorism. Here's what she said.
We have people we're locking up on that. We have someone in jail right now from one of the dealerships. They threw a Molotov cocktail through a dealership. They're looking at up to 20 years in prison. So if you're going to touch a Tesla, go to a dealership, do anything, you better watch out, because we're coming after you. Wow. And if you're funding this, we're coming after you. We're going to find out who you are.
Okay, now to me, that's the most important part of that entire statement. If you're funding this stuff, we're going to find out who you are. That she just gave a little hint in what's actually happening here. And then you follow this up by some of the other statements by some very prominent people, and you understand what they're doing. They're going after the funding of this, because this is organized and it's funded. Of course it is. This just isn't coming. And I'm not talking about just the random, lunatic keying a Tesla, who's caught on the sentry mode, by the way. They've already caught a bunch of those people. This is like the firebombing, like we had yesterday, the stories of firebombing. And now it's happening in Canada as well, of Tesla dealerships. That's organized, that's funded, and these people are protected somehow. That may be drying up soon. Here's the first reason why. It's a bad day to be one of those psychos. Trump posts on Truth Social yesterday, and of course it gets reposted on X all over the place and other social media platforms. People that get caught sabotaging Teslas will stand a very good chance of going to jail for up to 20 years. Oh, we put a timeline on it. And that includes the funders. We're looking for you. And that was all in capitals. He's another one who mentioned the funders, right? And then follow this up. Dan Bongino, very good friend. If you know Dan Bongino, if you listen to his show for quite some time, now he's the deputy director of the FBI. Reposted an article that's featuring him from Axios. It says FBI investigates attacks on Tesla dealerships, cars amid Musk protests. If you know Dan Bongino at all, you know anything about him, he does everything very intentionally. He doesn't repost an article with his picture on the cover about going after the organizers of Tesla vandalism and domestic terrorism unless something's going to be done about it. I would bet, this is just my reading of the tea leaves and my guess, I would bet it's Dan Bongino in charge of that operation. And if it's Dan Bongino in charge of that operation, they're going to find out exactly who's behind this because you know it's organized and funded. All right, the biggest news story, and we'll get to some fun stuff in just a little bit, though. Well, this is going to cause, if you thought that the hysteria and the overreaction and the misinformation that's been happening, really for 4 or 5 weeks now, since the inauguration, hit an all-time high. Wait till you hear this weekend, the Sunday talk shows, all over social media, all over the news broadcasts, all the talking heads, the closing of the Department of Education. How can Trump hates children? Trump hates teachers. Well, I don't know about that, but it's true. He did take the first step yesterday with a signing of an executive order, the beginning of the closing of the Department of Education, that giant monolith that really, can you look at that thing and say it's done anything for teachers or kids? Can you really? I'm a product of public education. Now, you may be saying, well, there you go. That's how they failed. Listen to this guy. But honestly, I got a great education, but that's not everybody. And that was a long time ago as well. It's only gotten worse. Here's the first misconception about the Department of Education. You would think with that name, Department of Education, who could be against that? You would think it's been there forever, right? Decades, 100 years, 200 years maybe. Maybe that was the first thing the founding fathers. No. It's only been around since 1979. And the proof is in the pudding, and it's all right there in black and white. Since they developed the Department of Education in 1979, we've gone from first in education in the world to the highest we've peaked is 24. We've averaged 24th in the world ranking in education. Unacceptable, horrifying, it's embarrassing, and we should never, even if you don't have kids, even if you didn't go through public education, whoever you are, if you're in this, if you're an American citizen, you should be embarrassed. You should never have the mindset where this is acceptable, because it's not. So, with this began the destruction, because that's how it's going to be described, of the Department of Education just yesterday with Trump signing. I don't know who it was who set up the photo up. So you'll see the picture, and I put it on X as well for the tease and describing what was going to be on the live stream today. Trump surrounded by the kids. Obviously, it's a photo op, but they had him in a little school desk in the beginning, kind of like a Billy Madison kind of thing, where he's signing it there, but it still had the presidential seal in a little school desk. He looked like a giant kid. I don't know who put this together, but it was actually brilliant. It kind of humanized the entire thing. Now, I know everybody on the left is making fun of this because, he looks so stupid. Who did that to him? Somebody in his administration is trying to make him look stupid. They don't get it. They just don't get the humor. This is why they say the left can't meme. It humanized it. It's a funny little lighthearted moment in a very, very serious issue. And then, of course, once he got out of his little school desk, I don't know how he fit in there, by the way. Once he got out of that, he did talk about it and made the statement. Now, the biggest concern you're going to hear from are teachers. How does this affect teachers as well as kids? Well, he talked about that. And as this thing goes to the states, this is how he feels. Not at first, probably. I think he even would admit that. How, in the end, this is going to affect everybody.
But we're going to take care of our teachers, and I believe the states will take actually better care of them than they are taken care of right now. They'll work all sorts of systems and even merit systems. Those great teachers are going to be maybe a little bit better rewarded, or maybe that's the way it should be, but the states are going to make that decision. But we're going to love and cherish our teachers along with our children, and they're going to work with the parents, and they're going to work with everybody else, and it's going to be an amazing thing to watch, and it's really going to be something special.
concerns. I think all of those concerns are valid. This is a massive, massive thing. It's not complete yet, but it's the beginning of reorganizing public education in the country. You know, you got to have the mindset, like I said before, where you can't, it's unacceptable the way we do it now. We can't. We absolutely 100% can't allow that. But the questions are valid, I think. The questions about kids. You know, one of the questions was, well, what do you do with school? Do the states have funding for school lunches? Well, that part of it's taken care of by Health and Human Services. That's okay. That's not going to be affected, right? What about evaluations and testing? And yeah, absolutely. These are all valid questions. And I will tell you, I think my guess is it's going to be a real bumpy road for a little bit. But to put the power back in the states to control this is going to have to be the first step. We know what happened when we centralized it. It failed. It's awful. There are poor kids in poor failing schools that can't escape because teachers' unions have worked very hard to keep them there. This giant monolith organization. And by the way, maybe that's the most important thing to come from this, is you take the power away from these teachers' unions, which have way too much power, who haven't done anything for kids. And they keep on saying this thing. And this Randy Weingarten, the head of the teachers' union, which is a massive, bloated, bureaucratic organization. Keep your hands off our kids. Protect our kids. They're not your kids. That's the problem. They're not yours. You've used them as pawns for power. That can't exist anymore. Maybe the first result of this, the first effect of this is going to be taking power away from them, as it should be. I think it's going to be a bumpy road, to be honest with you, but it's a road that we have to undertake because what we're doing now to these school children as we compete in the world, unacceptable. Can't do it. Absolutely can't have this. And I think he agrees with that. So it's only been around since 1979. It's completely failed. What about the poor states? Well, what about them? Wouldn't you rather have local school district control, local state control over how education is handled? No, I want a department. Why? What justification is there for a massive, monolithic, centralized Department of Education? Where is it? What have they done? The proof is there. They're going to spin it every which way till Sunday to try to tell you that it was better that way. I don't see it. I don't know how anybody can see it. We've heard my entire life. I can't remember a time in my life, even going back to when I was a school child, in first grade, where you heard that education in the country is doing well, because it's not. Because it's absolutely, positively not. 1979, by the way, I was in third grade, so we already had 3 years of proof right there to see how it's doing. Some states, some districts do great. But the larger issue across the country, what a fail. Hey, by the way, speaking of Trump, and this reminded me of this. I wasn't going to do this, but you know how, and I'm not just talking about America's worst mayor, Mayor Wu of Boston, Mayor Wuhan, as she called it, Mayor Wu. Not just because I still have family there. I'm from the area. I pay attention to a lot of Massachusetts and Boston news. It's unbelievable what's happening there. And I think because of her own doing, you're going to see ICE and Tom Homan's Department of Immigration swooping into that city. She had her State of the City address just the other day, which every mayor in the country does, right? We just find out what's going on. She didn't double down. She tripled down in not working with ICE, not working with the feds to get rid of the criminal element. In fact, she's directed her police officers in the city of Boston to disobey the orders of ICE and to protect these criminals. Listen to this. This is a statement after the State of the City address. This is unbelievable.
Every person, every human being has the legal right to come to the United States and seek asylum or shelter.
Oh, boy. That's not going to go well there. I only bring it up, not for selfish reasons, paying a lot of attention to that here for my own concern here and my family that's in that area. I think that's going to be the model that the country looks at for, it's going to be this Tom Homan's Department of Immigration and for ICE swooping in there versus a city. I think that's going to be the showdown where it all happens, because you can't have that. And you can't have her tripling down, in some cases quadrupling down, on welcoming all, which of course includes the criminal element who are protected in that city. That's insane. And most of the people even in that city, even far left liberal Boston, are saying we can't have that. So I'd keep an eye on that situation. All right, let's get out of all that. It's been too much heavy news for a Friday. It's finally out. Snow White gets released to theaters across the country. You ready for it? The much delayed, much beleaguered Disney live-action remake of the the classic fairy tale. First of all, did we need this? I don't think so. All the controversies as well. You need a scorecard to keep them all up, so I kind of wrote some down here. Remember, this thing was supposed to be released a long time ago. Remember that? Well, let's go back and let's remind ourselves of all the controversies that have beleaguered this Disney, what they hoped is a new classic. Going way back to even the casting of Rachel Zegler. I forgot about this, and this was kind of ridiculous. This is probably why I forgot about it, because I don't agree with this. The decision to cast her. So the Disney fanatics are always very critical of who they put in their classic movies, right? Especially her. And I forgot about this, because she is of Latina heritage, so there were a lot of people who were upset about that. I don't agree with that, whatever, but it existed. That was one of the first controversies. That seems like child's play compared to what actually happened after that. Her comments on the original film started the whole thing. Her very woke comments, which is why this thing is called, by many, Snow Woke, saying the 1937 Snow White classic was problematic and that the prince was a stalker. You remember that? That's when everybody said, oh boy. And then she made more statements about it. She made more statements about men in the audience. So that would be like parents like me not paying for it. It's not specifically for you. We don't really need that. That added fuel to the fire. And then, which has only continued now to right now and something we were talking about yesterday, the whole idea about making the movie in the first place. This is where it talks about the dwarfs, right? The 7 dwarfs. It was in the title of the Disney classic. Did they learn their lesson? To even do the movie. Now, for this one, I go to the actor Peter Dinklage, who happens to be a little guy himself. I remember him from Game of Thrones. He's been in all kinds of stuff. He was the first one that pointed this out. He said, first of all, in his opinion, it's problematic to make it in the first place. Shouldn't be even making this movie with this stereotype, blah, 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 whatever. That caused another controversy. So now we're up to like 4 controversies in the life of this thing so far. He said you shouldn't make it in the first place. If you're going to do it, fix up the image, whatever it is. Disney comes back. This is one of the first remakes of the movie where it caused more of a delay, and they said, okay, we're going to get rid of the dwarfs. He comes back and he says, oh my God, you made it worse. So now you're still going to make it, which is problematic, and now you're cutting out the dwarfs. They don't have a reason. You're taking more opportunities away from dwarf actors. So now, current day, right now as we speak, dwarf actors are protesting the release of the movie. Oh, God. Okay, then we got into, oh, no, we're not done. No, it's more. The political views of the stars. Remember this one? Now, Gail Gadot, is it Gadot? Whatever. She's the evil queen. She's Israeli. She has spoken out publicly before about releasing the hostages. Rachel Zegler, who apparently didn't learn her lesson after 4 controversies, decided to speak out on this on behalf of Palestinians. So you got the co-stars who apparently don't talk to each other now. She won't talk, and they won't appear at premieres together. Disney has had to separate them. These are the 2 stars, which leads to this. Now, the controversies have not only led them to scale it back, and it got delayed, and over budget, and all this other stuff. They scaled back the premieres of this thing, and they made it industry only. This is why this week you said, wow, that Snow White movie coming out now? I didn't see much about it. That's for a reason, because Disney scaled down the press release of this thing and red carpet premieres of it, because I think they know it's going to be a disaster. Now, here's the big question. This is why I'm fascinated by it. Not that I'm interested in going to see Snow White. I don't care about that, because I'm definitely not going to spend any money on it. I want to know if this is the turning point for Hollywood, especially Disney. Have they learned? Because remember when they started making this movie, when production went underway? It was when all the woke stuff was at its height, right? So they felt kind of protected in coming out with this. Well, that turned, didn't it? Everybody realized what DEI was, what the woke stuff was, the controversies, everything. Everybody's aware of it. And Disney has fallen on some hard times over some awful, awful go woke, go broke decisions. Have they learned their lesson on this? Because by all indications, you would think this thing's going to bomb. Like bomb badly. Eventually down the road in streaming, it'll make its money, whatever. But have they learned their lesson? And are other studios looking at this? Are other producers looking at this in all forms of media to realize what horrible mistakes they made? I'd like to say yes. And I'd like to say that entertainment, which kind of keeps us all distracted from the bad stuff in the world, I'd like to say that they learned their lesson. I don't think so. I don't think they will. But I mean, you got to think this thing's going to bomb though, right? Man, I can't. We'll find out. We'll have some information on Monday when we're talking about this to see how badly it did. I think it's going to be really bad. I do. I think so. We'll see. The critical reviews, if you listen to those, haven't been good. But more importantly, culturally, pushback was real. I think they're going to feel the pain. Disney will, but will they learn a lesson? I don't know. It's up to them. Who the heck knows? All right, I'm out of material. I got to get out of here. Go enjoy a weekend. Have a wicked awesome Friday. Going into the weekend, remember, don't take any crap from anybody. And another takeaway is everything you hear about this ending of the Department of Education, there's going to be so much misinformation. I would kind of like tune a lot of that out and just think about, especially if you have kids in public education, think about what it means to them. Think of what it means for the country in the long form. It's going to be a bumpy road at first, but what does it mean down the road? Can't keep going the way we were, that's for sure. All right, thanks for finding the live stream and the replay here on X and YouTube and Facebook, and also the audio podcast gets posted usually about 9 a.m. Eastern Time, your favorite podcast platforms, wherever those are. Have a wicked awesome weekend. Be safe as well. We'll talk to you Monday.